Welcome back to another Canon Quick Shot, a quick review of a non-comic book or superhero movie. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm looking at the Netflix original Bright, starring Will Smith, Joel Edgerton, and directed by David Ayer. So number one, I'm already telling you, this is not about to be quick. I got a lot to say. This has to be one of the worst movies I've ever saw. And I gotta think that if I sat down and think about it, it has to be in the top 10 worst movies, if not the top 15. And this is crazy because there's the number of critics that, of course, bash the movie. They bash better movies than this. So, of course, they're going to bash this. But then we got fans all over that like the movie. And I am not with them at all. I can't, and I usually am forgiven of a lot of things, but this, I can't even see how you could fix your mind or your mouth to claim that this was decent, let alone good. So let me just get into the movie. I think my deep, I wouldn't say hatred, but my deep problems with this movie actually stems from the fact that it is a very good premise. And coming into it, before it even came out, we've heard, well, if you've been listening, you've heard about the script Max Landis has about this buddy cop movie in a world where there's orcs and, creatures. So I was already like, oh my God, that is super creative. And for me, when I'm rating movies and whatnot, creativity ranks high for me. If you know me at all, or you probably don't, not everybody knows me, but I write movie ideas and scripts. And so creativity ranks high for me. So I was already down with that premise. And then once you said David Ayer and Will Smith and blah, 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 I was like, oh my God, I could just imagine the things they're going to do with this. And while they do accomplish some of those visual things that you would expect from David Ayer in this type of premise, everything else is so bad. Because I like this type of movie where you are dropped in the middle. There's those are the type of movies that I like. I like to write, actually. And it's where it's not an origin story. It's not over explained or whatever, but you're in the middle of it. Some event happened prior to, and now you're in the middle of it. So you can do those movies. You can do them well, but they are difficult to do. And the number one thing you can't do when writing a movie like that is put too many storylines in it. And that's literally all this movie does. The whole movie is just story, plotline A, plotline B, plotline C, plotline D. We got this, we got that, we got that. I was just like, how could someone of Max Landis' stature, even though he's not my favorite writer, how could he make that rookie mistake? And then how could people above him approve that rookie mistake? Like, it's just, that's the number one flaw with this movie, is you tried to put 1,000 things into a movie where you already start at a deficit because you didn't explain the origin. You just dropped in the middle of it. And so you got to use creative dialogue and different things like that to explain the origin, for lack of a better word, of what's going on. But they don't do that. They do not do that. And when they try to throw in dialogue to explain things, it's rushed, it's blown past, it's just ridiculous. So there's that. And then everything else technically is bad. I mean, some of the cinematography is cool. I'll give it that. And definitely, I don't want to say everything's negative. Definitely the world they built was impressive. The way they transformed LA to fit like a world that is not ours, but it definitely feels like ours at the exact same time. So I think that was it was beautiful, and they did themselves a disservice with the opening credits, which pissed me off. The opening credits move so fast, and there's so much detail and so much to look at, and they just fly past it, and it's really upsetting, because I thought that was a time to really build the world even more without even having to do anything but show us the images, show us the things you created. You know, with the graffiti and the store signs, we speak Orcish, we speak Elvish, like, you know, it was like real life. So I that was a missed opportunity. Okay, so at this point, usually I keep these non-spoiler, but it's on Netflix. You can see it. You can easily see it. So if you didn't see it yet, I'll go watch it and then come back, because I'm about to start talking about the plot in the actual movie, but at the same time, it sucks, so it don't matter. The story is so mishandled. I won't say stupid. It was mishandled. Here was my impression when I first heard about the movie and the way it was explained. I took it as, in our current world, maybe 50 years ago, maybe less than that, 20, 25, 30 years ago, whatever, something happened that opened up the world to these other races from other worlds. And whatever happened, and they got stuck here, or some of them got stuck here, or whatever. And they just, you know, adapted and started living here. So that's the way I took this story. And I'm like, man, you know, that's going to be good, because then there's not a lot that you have to explain. You just really got to explain the event. And then after that, it's just kind of, you know, the world takes its course. And so this whole dark lore thing, and everybody teaming up to stop him and all that, that was cool. That story works. You just didn't have to make it 2,000 years ago. Because at some point, and again, rush past, somebody mentions 2,000 years ago this happened. But this is supposed to be in 2017, 2016. So that automatically makes this not our world. It looks like our world, but it's not our world. This is a world where these creatures aren't just oh my God, that word getting me. I can't do it. It's not a world where the creatures are just adapting to our world. It's a world where they've been part of our society since way before our society was created. And so their influence, their impact, and their imprint is all over our society in the history of it. And that was such a mistake to me, because now it's just, it kind of is what it is. There's nothing to really talk about. Yeah, you can talk about the elves are high class, the orcs are low class, and whatever. But it just makes it seem kind of, you know, thrown away. Okay, that's just the way it's always been. Whereas if you made this like an event that changed the world 20 some years ago, and we're still coping with it, we're still seeing them cope with it, we're seeing the world change to fit them in, and vice versa, that would have been much more compelling, and it would have been much tighter, I think, because people raise some fair criticisms. They make references to Shrek and to other pop culture things that would no way in the world been possible if we had creatures like this around for that long. So that part, the whole premise, I think, was broken. Now you go into these storylines. We got Will Smith, his partner's an orc. And I thought this was going to be much more of, like I said, a human that's still adjusting and not really fully on board with all these new creatures. Now he's forced to work with one. But instead, it's kind of that, but it's more so he's the first orc to ever be a cop. And I'm like, why did that, like, I was kind of on board if you were going to go deeper into his story, but it's clearly not his story. It's Will Smith's story. And so that storyline immediately gets tossed aside. Like, that didn't even mean anything. And then you had the whole entire police, everybody on every level trying to get him fired. And it was just so weird. It was like, And again, this is the problem with the 2,000 year thing. Had you said that same plot in a world where orcs have only been around 20 years, yes, I can understand that. That's like, the first black dude trying to go to a white college. Like, I get that. But 2,000 years, despite what the orcs were in the society, class system, you ain't never had a cop. And so I don't get that one. Because then they set up this whole, and I'm not even going to talk about the social society issues that everybody's complaining about. I don't even care. I didn't even really look at that like that as metaphors for black people, whatever, because there were black people in the movie and Latinos and all that, and they still seem to be living the same type of life. So I didn't think it was a metaphor. But anyway, you had a bit of that with the police brutality against orcs because they've oppressed them. So I get that part, but in real life, yes, police brutality against minorities and blah, 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 but there's a bunch of minorities in the police system. Maybe not in small town, but in big areas like this, they're full of them. Like, we see that, and we see Will Smith saying, I'm a street cop because he got that reputation, because, people know him. And so if it was the case for 2,000 years, it would have been some orc cops. They would have had orc cops. It didn't make sense. Now we get into the real stupid part. The whole elf thing, the Infree trying to raise the Dark Lord, which actually I don't mind. I don't mind the concept of this big event that changed the world. There's some, what's the word? Not extremists, fanatics. There's some fanatics out there that want to worship and bring them back. I'm actually cool with that. I didn't think it needed to be a literal plot where we're trying to stop the Dark Lord from coming back. That didn't need to happen. But I thought that would have been a cool little section of people that are also in this world. The people that are still, not still, because 2,000 years ago, again, if you would have made it 20 years ago, you would probably still have people around that sympathize with the Dark Lord or whatever. Cool. The elves being high class citizens, again, I thought it was cool at first until I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, that don't make sense. They wouldn't trump rich people out of nowhere, but that was all tied into the whole magic thing. This whole magic wand, and you have to be a bright to control the magic, and most brights are elves. The name of the movie, the whole plot with the brights and the magic, throw that away. Like, the magic wand I'm okay with, because they portrayed it pretty much like I thought it would be when I first heard about it. Because, they pitched it like all of a sudden one night this magic wand shows up and things go crazy. And I'm like, well, in a world with all these creatures, but there's no one that actually has magic or can do magic, then a magic wand could be like a nuclear weapon. Like, whoever holds that holds some serious power. So I was like, I like the way they portrayed it, but then it was too much with the Infree trying to raise the Dark Lord, and then the lady was saying the wand belongs to her, and I'm like, what's this, Harry Potter now? And then it's like, if you touch it, but you're not a bright, you explode. So I'm like, so how is putting on a glove all of a sudden makes it okay for you to touch it and you can use it to grant yourself wishes? Because everybody was kind of saying, like, you can't handle the magic if you're not a bright. But even if you are a bright, you have to be taught spells and stuff. So it's not pure magic, genie magic. It's old school witch and wizards type spells, Harry Potter style magic. So if that's the case, why is everybody trying to get this wand when none of y'all are trained to use it? You wouldn't even know how to use it. Everyone keeps saying, oh, I can make myself walk again. It could grant wishes. It can do this. How do you have proof of that? If no one can find these wands, and even if they did, they had to know spells, where are you going to learn it from? And so how are you going to use the wand? It was such like that killed me. And then Will Smith being the Bright was telegraphed a mile away. Like that, once they said the 1 in a million human is a Bright, you already knew. Plus, they had the guy earlier who said your partner's blessed. But at the same time, this movie introduces so much and never follows through, and it doesn't even matter ultimately. Like that random guy in the middle of the street with the sword and all that. It was like, okay, just a crazy guy. But then he starts saying some prophecy stuff in Orcish, and he talks about the shield of light. And then the little girl that they're trying to save, she talks about the shield of light. But we never figure out what the shield of light is. We never even get a hint of what that even means. And oh my God, it's so much in this movie is so stupid. We get the magic FBI, who seemed like they were harassing people too. They were talking crap like, oh my God, an orc in a badge. That's like an elf with a mop then. Blah, blah, blah. And they seem like crappy people too, but then I guess they end up being good, but they were really incompetent. Like, he was saying, I've been chasing this girl for 20 years, but they got nowhere near her. And then I'm like, okay, if the elves are so high society, so clean and, fancy, why is he a cop? Like, even though he's FBI, federal, whatever, he's still like a law enforcement. Why would an elf do that? So there's that. And then just so much of it is unexplained. Like, the thing that bothers me the most is when they go to that like broken down crack house to find the girl. At first, there's this other kind of girl, but you don't know if she's a girl because she's like plastered on the wall, and it looks like, I don't know what it looks like, to be honest with you. I think somebody said that's like a popular tattoo, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't do tattoos, so I don't know. But I was like, what is that? I couldn't even wrap my head around what I was looking at. And it's not until later in the movie they're like, oh crap, let's do a flashback. And she hits her with a spell. And I'm like, what spell turns you into that? It looks like there was pipes coming out of her body with blood being drained. And so I was like, is this some Vampire Blade Trinity type stuff? What is going on? Because when they first walk in, the orc is like, I smell a lot of blood. And I'm like, oh, are they draining humans to power this lady up? But no, not at all. It was nothing like that. So, and then the elves that they were fighting, they were killing people so much for no reason. I don't get that. Like, they killed that Mexican family for zero reason. And why were they so strong? Are all the elves strong? None of the other elves were that strong. And they were super fast. And they just kept coming. And I'm like, okay, are they like dark magic? Or they didn't explain none of that. They was just like super assassin vampire elves or something. I don't know. It was too much. It was way too many storylines trying to happen in the same movie that needed to explain kind of the background. And it should have been a quiet movie. It should have been a quiet in the car type cop movie. But they blew this out of the water with all these stupid storylines. They never pay off. They never spend enough time to explain any of them. And some of them just are stupid in the first place. I thought they mishandled Joel Edgerton as Jacoby, the orc. Joel Edgerton is a great actor. This is a bad performance. And I don't think I wouldn't even say it's his fault. It's definitely the direction and the writing, because they have him at moments like seem like an idiot, like where he just does stupid stuff. And then there's moments where he's like a really good cop. And I'm like, I don't understand the arc of what they're trying to do with this guy. Like, is he competent? Is he not? Is he good? Blah, blah, whatever. And then Will Smith, I thought was a great performance. But at the same time, the script was terrible. It was just so bad. The story was bad, but the dialogue was bad. The interactions between the orc and Will Smith are awkward. When they bring in Tika, I guess, is the elf that they were with. She was awkward. All that was awkward. Then later, randomly, she's like, "Oh, I can speak English," and they were like, "Well, why you speak English? Oh, I didn't trust y'all yet." What? What does that even mean? You gave them the wand, but you didn't trust them? Oh my God. And then there was a pool. And then the girl said she was her sister. And then none of it made sense. none of it made sense. It was so stupid. And so overall, I'm going to wrap this up because I could go for a long time. Overall, I will say that Bright, again, suffers from a broken premise, and it suffers from David Ayer trying to mash up too many of his movies into one thing. And you watch this, it's in the watch, it's Training Day, it's Lord of the Rings, it's Harry Potter, it's Suicide Squad, it's all these things mashed up into one movie that should never have those things come together. And I'm gonna end on this because this, and if you like this movie, okay, fine, but you cannot sit here and tell me David Ayer didn't mash up his old movies. This man used the exact same plot point from Training Day, and it was telegraphed 5 miles away, and it was horrible. It was horrible because you did it before. It was horrible because we saw it coming, and it was horrible because it didn't mean crap in this movie. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's the point in the movie where Will Smith and Jacoby are they tied up by some mob boss orc, I guess, I don't know, and they open up some pit that goes to hell. I don't know. We don't even know. And so he's about to shoot them and throw them in, which is crazy to begin with because they're cops. And all of a sudden the orcs are like, yeah, we should just do what we want to them, even though they've been treating them like crap this whole time. And they could have been did that. But anyway, so he's about to shoot or whatever. And then he gives the gun to his boy, like, it's time to earn your colors. Shoot him. And then we get a flashback that Jacoby, when he was chasing down the orc that shot Will Smith in the beginning, he chased the wrong guy, ended up being a kid, and instead of arresting him, he helped him escape. And so then the kid is like, that's the guy that helped me, and I can't kill him. So the literal same plot from Training Day, where Ethan Hawke helps out this little girl that was about to get raped, and then later on, these guys that were paid to kill him end up being related to that girl, and so they save him. Okay, but in Bright, he's like, okay, son, go home. And he shoots him anyway. He shoots him anyway. And so it's like, what was the point of you ripping your movie off just to not pay it off? It was, oh my God, this movie sucks. This movie sucks so bad. Okay, so my final rating, I'm sorry, this movie is terrible. I'm gonna give it 63 out of 100. It's a D. And the only reason it's not an F is because, again, I give huge points for creativity in, the visuals of the world they created. The aesthetics is beautiful, and the idea was creative, but everything else was trash. So anyway, did you see Bright? Are you going to see Bright now? Go to the comment section, let me know. Thumbs up, subscribe if you've heard his official canon.